The inventories have gone up to a staggering level of about 85 days of sales in September.
Somebody has to pay the interest cost.
Are you forced to give some schemes, discounts?
As a part of Vector Consulting, we did a mystery shopping survey. If I want a particular variant and a particular color, what is the chance that I will get it?
Where is the genesis of all these?
By the time the feedback of slowing down of retails happen, I think it takes at least 2-3 months for that information to flow into the manufacturers also.
To this extent, this year FADA had to write a letter to the OEMs that the inventory situation is very high. Somebody had to shout loud. So it's an irony, right? So an industry obsessed with just-in-time has so much inventory at both the ends. So if I don't know upfront how much a customer will get, now this is the conflict which companies go through, the flexibility on one side which sales demands and the stability which is on the other side. The way we have solved this problem in the past is by creating shock absorbers in the system. We created a system by which any variant could be made available to a customer in one day. The overall inventory in the system reduced by around 30%.
Hello and welcome to the Counterpoint podcast. We often hear stories of record-breaking automobile retail sales, often beyond the expectations of the industry. We also hear of stories where the sales have gone down substantially as against the projected numbers. Both these extremes cause discomfort and affect the various parties in the automotive value chain, particularly the dealerships, which are the retail points for car sales. In fact, in the current times, we're actually grappling with one of these extremes. According to the data by Federation of Automobiles Dealers Association, FADA, there has been a staggering increase in the inventory at the dealerships. It went up to a level of 85 days of sales in September, and it was at about 80 days of sales in October too. It only came down to about 60 days of sales, which is also high for the system, in the end of November. Now, these numbers clearly depict an inefficiency in the system and the way the inventories are managed in the industry. In today's discussion, we want to discuss why some of these challenges happen, why some of these inefficiencies exist in the system, and how can we solve them. We'll also understand how does it affect the dealerships in terms of the business and the longevity of their business. We have two experts who spent numerous years in the industry, understanding the business and also solving it year on year. We have Mr. Naveen Philip, who is the promoter director of Popular Vehicles, a company who's pioneered the automotive dealership and service industry from almost 85 years in the business. We also have Mr. Ravindra Patki, senior partner at the Vector Consulting Group, who leads the auto and consumer goods segment at Vector. He's helped many organizations in the past with his experience and insights to help and solve deep chronic challenges in the business. So let's talk to them. Hi Naveen. Hi Ravindra. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing this. Lovely to have you both here. Naveen, you've spent 27, 28 years in the industry, and I think the business is almost 80, 85 years old.
I'm the third generation of the business.
Third generation of the business. Well, lovely. So the FADA data, the FARA data that tells us is that the inventories have gone up to a staggering level of about 85 days of sales in September. It's still at a very high level. Is that the reality at your end?
This would be true. I mean, it's not that in every segment this holds true, but in some of the smaller cars, it definitely went up to 80-85 days. It's slightly different in the more luxury car sales, where the inventory levels have not gone to those levels.
Right. So you're saying these smaller car segments has seen the brunt of it a little more than the luxury, which means that the luxury car segment has seen more sales as well?
No. So if you look at the Indian car market, if you look at last year, I think it was about 4 million units. The luxury car sales, that is above 50 lakhs, is hardly 1%, 1.2%. So it's not price elastic to that extent.
Okay, interesting. So even if the inventory is going up in one segment of the business, for you, at the end of the day, the high inventory affects the business. What sort of challenges does it pose when the inventory goes to that level?
So obviously, somebody has to pay the interest cost. So partly taken care by the manufacturer in terms of a little longer credit days as such, and partly taken by the dealership. And since we work on a slightly smaller margin per se, the interest rate actually cuts into the margins of the dealership. That's one aspect. The other aspect is, as most dealers pile up inventories, then the discounting rates also go up. So you not only lose out on the interest rate portion, you also lose out by discounts. So both these aspects play into it. So every time, so any goods, which is in terms of higher inventory, there's a potential loss that you're staring at. So
Right.
that's obvious. I mean, the velocity of inventory or the velocity of sale is very important. So if you can churn your inventory 12 times, 24 times, great. But if you're having 80 days inventory, that means you're churning it only 4.5 times, which is definitely a much lower total margin that you make as such.
What sort of steps do you take when something like this happens? I mean, are you forced to give some schemes, discounts, some other ways to tackle this? high
Yeah, so
inventory?
both manufacturer and dealerships combined realize that. So it's very difficult to predict what is your sale going to be. So till last year, the sale was on a high. The slowdown in terms of actual passenger car sales below a certain price point started becoming quite high in terms of the slowdown becoming quite high. I think sometime in December of last year also. But the production doesn't stop, because by the time the feedback of slowing down of retails happen, I think it takes at least 2-3 months for that information to flow into the manufacturers also.
Right.
So that 3-4 months phase lag will build up inventory, and then you get into that vicious cycle per se. Manufacturers and dealers put together run schemes, discounts, etc., to ensure that the metal moves out. But when a slowdown hits, the actual wallet size gets affected for the person, and then it's, even if you're buying a 7 lakh or a 10 lakh car, so if you give a 20,000 rupees extra, it's still not that much to actually initiate the purchase cycle per se. So that's a problem.
Right. Ravindra, you have also seen, I think, many dealerships, many businesses struggle with this part of the challenge.
So if you look at from the perspective of the customer and the dealer, the relationship is always that the customer buys. Whatever way we want to sell or influence that sale, it is ultimately the end consumer who has to put the money and buy. So it is a misnomer at times that we can push and generate the sales with the consumer. It is the consumer who will decide whether they want to buy at this time or in future. So that creates a problem when your projections go wrong and you are very slow to react to the market realities. As he rightly said, from last year December it has started. So last year December around 50 days of inventory to this year September 80-85 days of inventory. So it gradually increased.
Right.
Okay, and the anticipation was somehow we will still push and generate some sales, which did not materialize.
Right. So, I think Ravindra points out an interesting piece, which is the switch that the customer can make or not. What has been your experience?
I mean, if everybody in the industry, or not just in this industry, any industry could predict it,
Right.
it is, then the stock markets wouldn't be
I
where
know.
it is and all that. So it's very tough to predict as such. The only thing is, Ravindra pointed out, is that is there a mechanism to make this and adjust production at a much faster pace than having a 3-4 month phase lag per se. Since I'm not on the manufacturing side, for me it is very difficult to predict. But I think that in terms of just-in-time production or whatever that is, in terms of the actual data going, so all that with, I think over the years it's got better.
Right.
It's still got a much larger scope in terms of getting to its best. So if dealerships can mark out which color, which car, what is the inquiry levels, etc. going, and it's captured much faster, I think that's possible. One of the things that impediment this is that in a particular city, so if you take Delhi, for example, you said you've come down from Delhi today. So I'm taking Delhi as an example. There must be Maruti, Hyundai, and Tata Motors and Mahindra, the 4 largest manufacturers put together, which control about 90-92% of the market, would have probably about 40-45 dealers. All of them combined in Delhi. Now, as Shubham, you might walk into a dealership that is very close to you. You said Vasant Kunj. So you might walk into a dealership there, but you would also probably online check with 3 other dealerships. You might not check just for a Maruti, you would probably check for a Hyundai and a Mahindra at the same time.
Correct.
So all this gets recorded. So it's very difficult to pinpoint that how much of inquiry would go into booking and how much of booking would go into retail. Whereas if you look at a luxury car or a higher end thing, it could be only one single dealership. So then the chances of that booking converting into retail is far higher. You're able to judge that better. Here you might lose out to a co-dealer in terms of discounts, in terms of color options, faster delivery, proximity, so many aspects. there are numbers per se, but it differs depending on number of dealers, concentration of population, and so many other factors.
So there is
And also what is the price value of the vehicle per se.
right. So there is some drop in the booking to
Absolutely.
retail as well.
Yeah.
Right. Right. And okay, so coming back to the high inventory thing, let's say just assuming that the inventory is so high, I were to come to your dealership or any dealership for that matter in the country and ask for a particular model and a color, would I get it readily available? I'm assuming.
So to a large extent, yes. But as I said, some color options might not be easily available. It might not be off the shelf per se. So that could probably take, say, 10 days or 30 days or whatever that is. But otherwise, during high inventory levels, the obvious thing is that it would be readily available.
Right.
Very few cars might not be available, but yeah.
So
Right.
Shubham,
Is that
to
a
that extent,
yeah.
we did a mystery shopping survey.
Okay.
Okay, so
Interesting.
as a part of Vector Consulting, we get into the mystery shoppers, and we, because of very high inventory, we try to do a survey in terms of if I am a customer and if I want a particular variant and a particular color, what is the chance that I will get it? And we just walk into the shops and we just try to check if it is available, off the stock, or it is to be made and then it will be
You need a
delivered
booking
over a
time.
period of time
Right.
with some booking and all. So what we find is that a staggering amount of such cases, say, for example, white color is usually available.
Yep.
The silver is little lesser but still available. But if you go to tomato red, canyon ridge, the black, so as you get into the different colors,
That's what I said. In terms of color,
the availability starts going down significantly despite having this high inventory. So while the companies think that if we push inventory to dealerships, my customer will get what they want. Actually, the inventory creates unavailability at the dealerships because inventory is of some other model and variant and the requirement is of some other model and variant. And
And
that's why the
because-
inventory stays longer also.
because and working capital is stuck.
Yeah.
So if you want a particular color, I mean, I don't know how many people would see this podcast, but the fact is that if you wanted silver, as he mentioned, Ravindra mentioned, and I have white, I would rather push you white at a slightly higher discount. And some customers would take it. But as he said, not all customers would want to take it. That's it.
So if I were to go to Delhi dealership asking for a silver color, I might get a white one, but down here in Kochi, someone might
depends.
have a
Yeah,
silver
it
available
depends.
already
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
it is not available. So
Absolutely.
there's a mismatch in the inventory, clearly is what you're suggesting at. Okay. And you were saying that, you have to give a higher discount. To what extent is the customer ready to switch? I mean, do they come with a very specific mindset? Do they have
I think
that's set in their mind?
Some of the customers are ready to switch. Wouldn't have a percentage on it per se, but there are enough customers ready to switch in terms of if you give a color option, if you give a better discount, better terms in terms of finance and all that. So there is.
Right.
So when we did this survey in terms of the consumers, what we observed that most of the customers actually visit twice. The first time is the window shopping, which they are doing with multiple dealers, trying to identify what model. So they will take test ride, understand what are the features of the vehicle, and they go back. And they go back and they may be doing some research at their place online, what colors and what variants. So there is a basic variant, there is high-end variant, starting from say the LXI to ZXI and all those things in different companies. So they make a choice after they did they complete the window shopping, and by that time they make up their mind that what is an acceptable variant color combination that they would buy, and they will come back with that thought in mind. As he rightly said, some of them get converted because take a silver and white, it's okay, I can
Might
work
want
that
to
out.
see,
But
yeah.
if somebody wants a particular color,
A black and
Then
white
it's
might
very
not
tough
be such a
then it's
Yeah.
very tough.
Right.
And particular variant even tougher because they have identified, okay, I want a vehicle which is having so many features, and the lower the variant, the features will be lesser. So they may switch, they may not switch.
So it also depends. So I'm looking for a white lower end model, as he said, but the dealership has got say a red higher end model, and if I say that the white lower end model is say at 5 lakhs, and the higher end model is at 6 lakhs, but I'm willing to bridge that gap to a large extent. say by 50,000 or 60,000, then the question mark comes into the mind. I'm saying, oh, white, red, it's okay, but it's got this system, it's got reverse camera, it's got etc. Then the whole family decides whether to switch or not. It's not just one person. So I think over the last 25, 30 years, in terms of decision making, one, younger people are coming to buy. The whole family is more involved. I think probably in my friend's case and all that, when their parents were buying the car, I don't think anybody else other than the main member of the household was involved. Today, everybody is involved. The children want certain features. Does it have sunroof? Does it? So many aspects come into play. So that switch and the the optimum value versus price versus features. So the value benefit thing and color and some of the options then becomes a little vague.
It's a car is always an aspirational buy in India still. I mean, and it's something that we look forward to in our lives. So I think that is an important discussion, but a decision. But the gap that you have to fill is still a loss for you at the end of the day, isn't it?
So that's what I said. It is both in terms of both manufacturer and dealership.
Right.
So the schemes that are run are shared to some extent. A lot of schemes are from the manufacturer side. But more importantly, as Ravindra said, is that any time that working capital is stuck and is not being rotated, it's at the end of it, it is a loss for everybody in the system.
Right. What is interesting is that in spite of a higher level of inventory, you still have to bear some losses at your end and by extension the manufacturer to that extent, right? Ravindra, I want to sort of go deep a level and understand where is the genesis of all these concerns, challenges that are coming, which is why the inventory keeps piling up time to time. Like you said, it's like a 4 year cycle, goes up and down. Where is the genesis of all this?
See, aspiration is not only for the people who are buying car. It is also for those who are making cars, right? So every organization, they want to grow year on year. So every organization, OEM, they will have their own yearly targets, yearly numbers that they want to achieve. They have promised to the boards, and those numbers are then converted into the area-wise, state-wise numbers, then regional person-wise numbers, area manager-wise numbers. So everything from the company's side is getting divided into up to dealer level. I think every dealer will also have some numbers to achieve.
Right.
And that is coming from the fact that I have to show some growth over last year for my organization. And these numbers are decided much too in advance, and I still have to show them. So all my plans, these numbers are getting converted into the production plans. So sometimes I get an indication from the market that I don't need these, but I still have to achieve the numbers. So I continue with the production plan, at least with those numbers, so that I keep producing according to them. And once the production is ready, I have no option but to give it to somebody, right? And fortunately for every industry which has an intermediary who can buy these vehicles in bulk plays an important role. So if you go to not only for these consumer goods, wherever distributors or super stockists are involved,
right,
it is an intermediary to whom you can offload the inventory. Okay. So that happens with this industry as well. Now, once I have made those products, I have to offload them, try to achieve my numbers. And that keeps on happening. And that is why it takes, though the indicators are coming from the market, it takes longer time for me to really adjust to those indicators and convert my numbers or change my numbers. To this extent, this year, FADA had to write a letter to the OEMs that the inventory situation is very high. Okay, so somebody had to shout loud that this is the situation that we are facing. The second problem, and it has an impact, although not a severe impact, but it still has an impact, is how we are recognizing the market share of different OEMs. Now, every OEM is trying to achieve a number in market share, that so much is in this month, in this quarter by market share. And that is determined by what is the wholesale number. Okay, what is it that I have generated by way of pushing it to the dealers.
So you're saying the primary numbers are accounted for as the market share numbers?
Yes.
Interesting.
While the actual consumption is when the retail is booked.
Correct.
When the customer comes and buys is the moment of truth, when your vehicle is sold.
The assumption is that once it has been sold to a dealership, it would eventually get sold, but there's a lag, and
But
that
there
lag
is a
is
lag.
what creates
And if you see this lag, this is what is creating the inventory. See,
Correct.
last year, December, 50-55 days to 80-85 days in September. It increased because of these numbers, that retail was lower and wholesale was higher. So this also drives certain behaviors in terms of achieving those market shares on ground, and these two factors I think create this anomaly in the situation. Now, think from the perspective of auto sector. The entire auto sector is working with the thought process of JIT. Sometime back you mentioned JIT. A all OEM is actually are going through this just in time. And for the same OEMs, if you see the inventory at their dealers and at their suppliers, it cannot be called just in time. It is just the internal body of the OEM, which is just in time. So you are getting, asking the suppliers to keep huge inventory, and you are getting it twice a day for your production, and you are pushing out. You don't have warehouses, so you push out all the inventory to the dealers, and you create huge inventory there. So just in time is not actually just in time. It is
Just in time
by
is only
somebody else
just-
is keeping the inventory to ensure that you work just in time.
Just
It's
in
an
time is-
irony, right? So
yeah.
an industry obsessed with just in time has so much inventory at both the ends.
Wow. Okay. So no one is looking at the complete picture, I think. That's
Absolutely.
where the concern is coming from. And I also take away the targets piece that you mentioned. It's almost like the sound in my own wheel is driving me crazy. It's so something like I've set a number and I have to achieve that is
Yes.
what is building up the whole challenge. But the piece of the market share, what you said, the primary sales, is it solvable to an extent? I mean, why not just change the accounting method?
No. So that is already being changed. I think Maruti, Tata Motors all have taken lead in that. And today they're looking at Vahan market share. So Vahan, while it was implemented initially, there were some states which were not on Vahan.
Data is also a concern in the past, right?
So now all data is there available on Vahan, and you can get that easily. So at least two of the larger manufacturers have already switched to a Vahan market share. So
Interesting, right? But then still, I think the mismatch thing that we were talking about, the variant, the model, the color, that mismatch can still happen. I mean, that model that I want sitting in Delhi might still be available in Cochin. We're talking about Cochin and Delhi because we're here and we've traveled from Delhi, and Ravindra is here from Mumbai. So that mismatch can still happen, isn't it, Ravindra?
Yes. So see, what happens is when you are making according to a monthly plan, or which is typically made in the mid of this month for the next month and the subsequent month. So you are already planning for, let's say we are in the middle of December, and the companies are planning for what to be produced in Jan. And this is based on the perception of what could have been achieved in the month of November. So you are actually 2 months out in terms of what is actually happening in market.
Right.
So you produce according to your anticipation, and that anticipation may not match with the reality. So what happens? You have created inventory. Most of the OEMs do not have huge yards to keep the inventory at their end. So typically, if you see, the inventories are pushed out to the dealer. So at times, this is my hypothesis, that whatever is produced, even if it is not immediately needed by the dealers, they may be asked to take it.
But as he rightly said, it's very difficult to predict the actual movement. So, for example, what could I say? If say Tata Motors has launched a product, okay, they have launched Nexon EV, they have launched Curve EV based on a certain projection that they have. Their visibility of what Mahindra would launch, or what Maruti would launch, or what somebody else would launch would be limited in terms of pricing view. They would have a fairly decent idea, but it's not exact thing. Plus, in terms of what would the consumer actually like. I mean, I might suddenly like an LG TV over a Sony TV. Now, LG is already, Sony's already produced thinking that I've been selling 1 lakh pieces a month, it'll keep going. But suddenly this TV comes out of the blue, and that 1 lakh drops to 30,000. I'm saying in certain cases, mobile phones, okay, or the example of Nokia or anybody else that you can. There is a prediction. There's a complete shift. So in that, there is, at least in terms of shift of technology, but in a lot of cases, not just shift of technology. It is the visibility or the visual appeal of a car. So that makes a lot of difference.
Right.
So on ground, the demand would change.
Ground demand would
And
change.
if you are 2 months or 3 months out, you are not connected to market. You are producing something which is not required immediately. and that is where the the concept where what we are saying to become agile in terms of reacting to actual market needs comes
Correct.
into picture. So if there is a movement happening from Delhi market, the company should be vigilant enough to know that from this dealership in Delhi the tomato red car is shipped out. Probably there is a movement happening, let me change my plans to accommodate that demand.
True.
Okay, this agility as of now in the way companies operate does not exist.
Right. The fact that the agility is not there, and I also understand that the market share piece has been something that is taken care of. Yet there could be a concern. What are those parameters, Ravindra, that I should first focus on? Because I'm sure the OEMs, the manufacturers, the dealers, no one wants this to happen, right? In reality, everyone's in the business, everyone wants to grow, everyone wants to make money. And if this is a concern, this has to be solved and should be solvable, right? Is that a yes or no, first of all? Can it be solved? Or is
It
it
can be
something that
solved.
yeah,
The question is it need to be solved? Obviously it needs to be solved,
obviously,
because
yeah.
it's not only from the perspective of dealers. See, there is obviously the interest and the margin pressure on dealers. Okay, some of it might be taken care by in part by companies, but in the chain everybody is losing. Okay,
Correct.
and companies don't even recognize time to time that if there is a customer who came and asked for a particular color variant for their vehicle and it was not available in their tolerance time, okay, they may switch to another company. So
So
having
customer tolerance time is one factor I see very clearly,
absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
So customer has a limited tolerance to wait. They may wait. Some customer will say, okay, I want it for my anniversary. It is coming after 1 month, one and a
Right.
half month. I am ready to wait for that long. If you can promise me delivery by that time, I have no problem. Somebody else will say that I want it earlier because I am switching a new car. I will start using it immediately, or I'm buying it for my children, or anything.
Lot of
Yeah,
factors. I'm
yeah,
Lot of
saying
factors.
yeah.
it
Could
could
be
be a
anything,
wedding
yeah.
in the family. It
Yeah.
could be
Yeah.
anything.
So we
It's,
do not know upfront that how much a customer will wait. So if I don't know upfront when how much a customer will wait, the best option is to give as early as possible. At least my ability should be to deliver as early as possible.
Which is the OEMs or the dealership
Yes,
collectively the
yes.
ability of that.
And
Yeah.
if you ask me, the surplus inventory that is carried at the dealerships is actually hampering that ability at times,
How is
because
that?
the customer wants as he gave example some time back, customer wants a particular variant in a color. Now
I
that
have
is
some
not
invent
available with
right.
me, and if now I ask this to the plant is telling I have made the plan for the month of Jan, in the month of December itself, so if you want some change it will be available maybe sometime later.
So my working capital is stuck at the dealer's level.
Absolutely.
Yes.
My ability to supply is also limited in that
Limited.
sense. The customer tolerance time is probably 1 day or a week at best.
Whatever it
right?
is, smaller.
There's a mismatch in
Yes.
those three aspects, right?
yeah, and it's very difficult. I'm saying while we say it is easy to solve,
Hmm.
so it depends on each segment would behave very differently. So if you're looking at a luxury car buyer, okay, they already have say 2 or 3 cars in their household, okay, but wants a particular either a Mercedes EQS silver with massage seats in the front, rear, or a Range Rover, similar combinations, this alloy wheel size, that engine combination. Willing to wait 6 months? Yes. I want a car. There's a wedding happening in my family. I want a car at this price range. If I don't get a particular car that I aspire for, I'm willing to switch. I'm not that loyal to the brand that I have to stick on to it.
Right. So the decision is also again
On
dependent
various
on
factors.
Yeah. Right.
So it's not just. So it also depends on what is the purchasing power, what is so many other factors in terms.
Probably the mismatch between those three factors, the customer tolerance time, the ability of the company to supply it in that time, and the dealer's ability as well, because his working capital is stuck, is why companies thought, okay, let me keep as much inventory as possible at the last point, isn't it?
There are multiple dealers for every manufacturer.
Yeah.
It is not a
Right.
single dealer. So if 3 of us are dealers in the same city, you might carry a white color, I might carry a silver, he might carry a red. It does not have to be that all of us are carrying white.
Oh, it's a collective inventory in that
Absolutely.
sense. Yeah. Right.
It can happen time to time.
Right.
Yes.
So-
Right. Yeah. So I was saying that then how do we balance these three aspects? How do we start to balance these three parameters?
See, if you look it from the perspective of the companies, why they would like to keep inventory at point of sale is because there is huge variability in the demand. You cannot predict what will happen
Never.
on ground.
True.
Okay, and the thinking is, if I keep higher inventory, at least I will be able to match all those variability in the demand. Unfortunately, what happens is the forecast at that level is also significantly inaccurate. It is not, as he said, in a city there are 3-4 dealers. Now, which dealer, which customer, which car variant, which color, we do not know. Okay, so there is a possibility that I am keeping higher inventory at a location which is very difficult for me to forecast.
Uh-huh.
Okay, if you look at my plant level or my component level, same component can be converted into a color, different color car or a different variant car. So the aggregation is very high at the plant level as compared to at a individual dealership level. So instead of increasing the inventory at the dealerships, what companies should do, if they have to match that customer's lead time, is that they should reduce their lead time of supply to such an extent that any change in the demand can be catered within the tolerance time. So it's like, in one of the two-wheeler manufacturers that we are working today, what we have offered is any color, any variant that the customer wants can be delivered in 7 days.
Wow.
Now, if the company has the ability to deliver it in 7 days, then the burden on the dealers, the burden on the customers to, or the dealers to change the customer by giving some discount reduces drastically. Company also doesn't have to forgo their margins to convert a customer. The customer is willing to buy. You just have to ensure you are giving it in time. So everybody wins in the process. So what is required is to capture this thing, what is happening on ground, and make
React.
yourself, enable yourself to deliver that in a very short lead time.
Right.
And that requires change in the internal process. Now I cannot say that, okay, if I have to deliver in 7 days, I will plan 1.5 months in advance. It is not possible. I don't know what is going to happen in next 7 days. So in mass segment, this makes sense because the mass segment customer is,
True.
is having limited tolerance time. He is going to buy it as and when required.
Right. Right.
And of course, it is also dependent on his or her own finances, because they have to
Absolutely.
get the money from somewhere.
CIBIL scores, so many aspects come into play. Finance. So 95% or 90% of all cars are bought through finance. At the sub 15 lakhs or 20 lakh thing. You will have to, I mean, the journey just starts with booking, but you have to clear your finance, insurance, so many other aspects before you get into it.
Right. And why is it that the company is not able to react at this point? I'm sure that the companies also would want to react as fast as possible to whatever is actually happening. Like Ravindra was saying that, if there's a customer who has a specific variant which is not available, I should be able to provide that within a minimum time possible. Why do you think the companies are not able to do that? The manufacturers are not able to do that as of today?
I mean, I think probably Ravindra would be a better person to answer that
Yeah, I
question.
think Ravindra is an expert on that.
So, if you look at from the company's perspective, companies have a long planning cycle. Okay, so long planning cycle. When I say, as we discussed, whatever has happened in November gathered into the forecast for in the middle of the December for production in January, which will be received by the end of January and sold probably in the month of February. So this is the way companies have molded themselves to produce with long term planning. Now what happens is, companies think that if I break this into smaller periods, there will be a huge chaos at the back end. See, as a plant, as a supply system, we need stability in the otherwise if there are changes happening continuously, it becomes very difficult for entire chain to react to it. And if somebody is not able to react, anyway it is going to go for a toss. So the thought process is, I need stability, while market needs huge flexibility. Now this is the conflict which companies
Wonderful.
go through, the flexibility on one side which sales demands, and the stability which is on the other side. Now the way we have solved this problem in the past with different companies is by creating shock absorbers in the system. To a certain extent, they take care of the flexibility, but they provide the stability to the plant. So the shock absorber at the front of the plant in terms of some way of managing inventory of the vehicles, at the back end for the components by way of managing fluctuations from the supply side. If these are introduced, there is a huge stability possible. It requires an altogether different thought process, and one of the things which you have to say that it is wrong, why should I use it, which is forecast. Forecast is wrong. Somebody has to decide and say that if it is wrong, why should I follow it? Let's disregard it, and let's try to react in such a way that I can deliver what the customer wants. But it requires a different supply chain design altogether from that perspective, which means I cannot take a high stand and say that I know the future. I have to assume that I don't know it, and be humble to react to it. That's the change required, and it's a big paradigm change for the organizations.
Right.
So different entities in auto sector with whom we have worked, more than around 20-30 suppliers in different domains, manufacturers, spare part suppliers, spare part distribution for OEMs. All of them, when we worked with them, were working on the same thought process that I know the future,
The
and I
forecast
need
model.
the forecast model, and we had to actually change that paradigm. And when that paradigm change happens, then you can actually start thinking how to react fast rather than how to build inventory. So that is a change. It's a change here. That's the change required.
Right. Interesting. The paradigm shift that you're saying, I'm sure that it is a change in the philosophy or the way I think, the way I plan, right? For a company of the size of a Maruti or a Tata or a Mahindra, is it possible for them to make that shift? Because they have a certain way of working, and they also come with a lot of legacy in terms of the pressure or the scale at which they're working. The paradigm shift that you're mentioning, is it possible for them to...
Actually, any organization can change that paradigm, because the way of working change which is required on ground, it is simple and can be easily understood by the people on ground. Second and foremost thing is, because of this paradigm change, if you are able to plug some loss of sales for which you are trying to push the wholesale, okay, if you are able to plug that loss of sale, you as well as the dealer gain. Your sale is bound to go up because you will plug the loss of sale that is happening in current system. So it is actually beneficial for the organization to make that change.
Right.
And if it can happen at lesser inventory, nothing like it.
Right.
Or you have to go by what Henry Ford started the entire production on.
I know. Go back
As
to
long
the
as you
basics.
can buy only a Model T in black, solves the problem.
Yeah, that will be restricting the choices. I don't think we're going back
Which
to
is what
that.
he was making a point, that the
Yeah.
complexity of choices at the retail end, whereas simplifying things at the manufacturing end, there's a tightrope to walk there.
What sort of benefits have the companies that you've worked with solved this problem for? Have you seen?
So the company, see, in one of the cases, this company was the third largest manufacturer in their sector for India. And the challenge was that when you are third largest, you have to give those variants which are given by your first competition, second competition, and you have to also make your own difference.
Right.
And typically in such case, the customer would have already seen the other two, would have made some mind, and now they have walked into your dealership. So you have to give anything that the customer wants in their
Plus one.
plus one. Okay, and in such an environment, what we offered and that changed the way the company operated altogether is, we created a system by which any variant which was almost 2 times the competition, because they were manufacturing everything the other two were doing, could be made available to a customer in 1 day.
1 day.
1 day. So they had depots. So we created yards in the market. Okay, and the first thing that comes into mind, if you create yards, it will increase the inventory for the company.
Right.
The overall inventory in the system reduced by around 30%. Okay, whether it is your inventory or the dealer's inventory, someone is financing it, and you are also financing by the way of discounting.
Correct.
So we created yards. It reduced inventory at the dealership. It reduced the inventory at the company also, because there was huge mismatches. And we created a system by which any vehicle that is getting sold from the dealership is automatically ordered on the plant the next day. Now, for this, plant requires all the material to be available. So we had to align all those things. But this is now a change. Now, a customer who is going to multiple dealerships, or particularly the two big competitors, and now walking into your showroom, you can tell him you can get this particular vehicle next day. This is our guarantee. Okay, now the chance that you will be able to convert this customer is much higher. And it is possible.
Is that an ideal situation to have for you as a dealer in the business?
Yeah, obviously. I'm saying in a lot of these segments, I think price points sensitive segments, I think this is definitely useful. This,
Right.
I mean, because otherwise it's neither the manufacturer nor the dealership that's making the money per se from holding the inventory. It's only the banks or the finance
I
companies.
know. Only when a car is sold is the time that the new money comes into the
Comes in.
system.
One of
Right.
my dealer friends who is working with these companies, he told me, you take the pain away of stocking, and don't have a problem of stocking. But the pain that I have because of this push, and then I don't have something which I need, then I still have to follow up with you, and then you still give me what I don't need immediately. All those things, if you take away and ensure that whatever I need,
Plus,
I have no problem in stocking. I can arrange that finance.
That's
because
the
cost,
business, I mean,
there's costs go up not just in terms of finance. Costs go up in terms of insurance costs. You have to insure all the stock. You have to take more stockyard. So many other aspects, security for the stockyard, phone. So it's not just one aspect of it, but I think it sort of balloons into various expenses.
Right, and I'm sure the dead inventory also balloons up, right? Like
Absolutely.
over time, and there's significant amount of working capital, so you
Sure.
have to infuse new money time to time into the system as well. So that is also taken care of,
Yeah.
I guess. Right. I think that's a wonderful solution if we can go towards that. Would you give us some broad thoughts on which way to go, or how do we
So,
start making that change?
So Shubham, we already have some solutions hosted on the website,
Right.
and some of the videos which our esteemed customers have been they gave us in terms of how the entire solution worked for them. We can share those videos.
Lovely.
It's a good thing to have, because see, every body, every organization is a different organism. Okay. The medicine that is required for different organism, different
Might be
body is
different.
different. We cannot say that it worked in Japan, so it should work in India. It doesn't work like that. So we have to investigate each and every client, understand in what stage they are, how they are currently, what is the DNA of the organization, and then make changes over there. We cannot simply say that because it is working in Timbuktu, I should do it here. It doesn't work like that.
Right.
So somebody gives you a medicine and you don't have that disease, you wouldn't take that
True.
medicine.
Correct. Lovely. So I understand. I get the answer as well quite clearly that that is something that is a customizable solution, because everyone's problems, every manufacturer's problems for that matter, would be unique in some way.
Yes.
Whatever the symptoms are might be similar, but the problems might be different at the core of it. So we'll share some videos with our viewers, with our listeners, and probably we shall see some progress on this front in the years to come. And Vector leading that would be a lovely
It
future
would be
to
a
hold.
lovely sight. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you,
Thank you.
Naveen. Thank you so much for
Thanks, Shubham.
being here,
Yeah,
and
thanks,
thank you for
Ravindra.
having us in Kochi. It was
Thank
a lovely short stay, but and the lunch was lovely. I had the Kerala red rice, and it was really good to eat.
I missed it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Next time.
Next time.
Next
yes.
time.
Okay, thanks a lot,
you.
Shubham.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much,
Thank you,
Ravindra.
Naveen.
Thank you, Naveen. For all the listeners, for all the viewers, this was a short conversation on why and how this problem can be solved. We'll share some videos, like Ravindra said, on some of the philosophies that we have implemented to solve this problem in the past. And we'll come back with more episodes. Thank you. Until
Thank
then,
you.
this is Shubham signing off. Bye-bye.
See you.
Thanks.